How you doing, guys? Malik over at Modern Pawn. If y'all have seen any of my videos in the past, you know I'm a big fan of the SCAR 17 from FN, the 308 chambered SCAR. I think it's one of the coolest rifles on the market. It's extremely functional. I have nothing but good things to say about the rifle, with the exception of one issue that's easily remedied, and that's the trigger. The trigger in this rifle is not terribly good. It is very mil-spec feeling, let's just put it that way. I think this rifle with a new trigger can be a fabulous rifle. I've been waiting on one for a long time, and it finally showed up. The Geissele Super SCAR trigger just came in the mail. We had a few of these come in. We have a couple in stock. This is an awesome trigger. They were out of stock for a long time due to some manufacturing problems they had with the first run. It really wasn't a manufacturing problem, it was more a cost issue. They were milling the trigger completely from bar stock, and it was becoming excessively expensive. So they finally started casting some, and these are the new cast models. These aren't the original 100% milled models. We're going to install this in the gun, see how it feels. Alright guys, we're going to get a baseline on how heavy the factory stock trigger is. That was 8.2, 713, 714. We're looking about a high 7s, close to 8-pound trigger average here. Hopefully the SCAR trigger from Geissele is going to bring that down into a cleaner, crisper break. Guys, if you're going to do this, make sure you read the directions. That's always the first step in anything like this, RTFM. It'll help you in the long run. So, first thing we're going to do, make sure the rifle's unloaded, make sure you're clear, make sure you're safe, pull off the lower receiver from your SCAR. You're going to now have to remove the right side safety off the lower receiver. There is a little screw right here. You're going to completely remove this screw. And then you're going to pull this safety off. You're going to pull this off with trying not to gouge your housing. You're going to pry up the right side safety, trying not to gouge your housing. That's going to pop off like that. You're going to then want to cock the hammer and slide the safety out from the left. Pull the safety out from the left side. What you're going to then want to do, there's a retaining plate right here that's on the left side of the receiver. That retaining plate is going to go rearward, this direction, back towards where the stock is. And push back on this. It's going to then come up and out. That's your retaining plate. From this point, guys, you're going to take the hammer pin out, pushing. Okay. All right, guys, now what you're going to do, grab a hold of the hammer. You're going to gently pull the trigger, keeping the tension from the hammer from it flying across the room. Okay. You're going to slide this all out together as one piece. Okay. So there's the spring that pushes the hammer forward and your hammer. That comes out. Next, you're going to remove the spring guide pin. Finally, what you're going to do is you're going to remove the trigger pin. Trigger pin comes out. The rest of the trigger comes out of the housing. If you turn this upside down, guys, that detent that controls the safety can fall out. So just be careful, mindful of that. That is not captured by anything but the safety. So if you turn it upside down, I'll just pull that thing out altogether. Alright guys, now you need to examine your grip screw. If the grip screw is not flush with the floor of the receiver, you need to use the supplied shorter grip screw that the Geissele comes with. Factory screw, shorter Geissele screw. With a new screw installed, it's not going to stick out up into the receiver. It's relatively flush with the floor plate. We shouldn't have any interference like that. From this point, guys, you're basically going to put everything back in the way it came out. So we're going to start with this guy right here, the trigger and the disconnector. Trigger goes back in with the disconnector. Put your safety detent back in place. Now you need to put this guy back in. Now you got to install the hammer and the hammer spring with the guide all at the same time. It's a little tricky. So you get this guy set in there, and then you're just gonna have to work with it and get it in place, and then work your pin across. So you know, get it locked in there. You're gonna have to put some tension down on this before you can get the pin to come across. At this point, guys, you need to put your retainer back in. You'll need to cock the hammer, slide it back there, get your hammer over the proper position. That'll come down and then forward. So now it's in the lock position. All your pins should be properly flush and everything will be retained. From this point, guys, with the hammer cocked back, you're going to reinstall your safety, put it back in there. Push that back in, push this guy back on, and put your screw back in. At this point right here, guys, this is where I would go and I would look and check to make sure there's no interference anywhere, that everything feels right. I would put the safety on, mash on that, make sure it doesn't go off. When you click it back on and off, that it doesn't feel like it's going to prematurely fire. I would look at the bottom right here where the trigger comes out of the receiver. Make sure there's enough space there and that it's not grinding on the plastic any. These little grooves on either side of the receiver, make sure the trigger isn't grinding anywhere on there. When you put the safety off, feel the trigger, make sure it feels like it's going to go off properly. Reinstall it back, reinstall the lower receiver back on the rifle. Alright guys, the trigger already feels amazing. I've already dry fired it a few times. I can tell there's a very significant improvement. 3 pounds, half ounce. 3 pounds flat. 2 pounds, 15.5 ounces. So that was within 1 ounce, right at 3 pounds. Beautiful trigger on there. Very good feeling trigger. Geissele technology, Geissele quality, big believer. I'm really excited to take this out and see how it feels in the field. All right guys, just for reference, this is a 2-stage trigger, so there is a little bit of a take up, and the break is nice and short, not a lot of over travel. Very nice feeling trigger with the trigger press to the rear. Very nice, clean, short, crisp reset. 8-pound trigger down to a 3-pound trigger. I promise you it will help your groups, it will help your hunting, it'll make you a better, more accurate shooter with a nice clean trigger like the one in this Geissele. This is Malik from over at Modern Pawn. Check us out at modernpawnandguns.com, facebook.com/modernpawnandguns. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and stay safe.